On today's show, it's time to project the contracts for all of the Ottawa Senators restricted free agents.
And we'll do a deep dive on the curious case of Fabian Zetterland, who has arbitration rights.
This is Brady Kachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode's brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just head to FanDuel to get started. Today is Friday, May 9th, and Pilsy, lots of great feedback on our UFA projections yesterday on the show. Today, it's even more interesting because in particular, Fabian Zetterland, front and center, arbitration rights, and a bit of a dip in his numbers when he came to Ottawa.
Yeah, we're going to do a deep dive on Fabian Zetterland, but we're going to the restricted section today, Ross. RFAs, the Senators have three crucial ones, and then a bunch of minor league ones that they need to take care of. But I certainly think that the most interesting one is going to be Fabian Zetterland, a guy who really found a great spot for himself in San Jose. I would say it's fair to say that it's a bit of a shock that he was traded from San Jose. That seems like the exact type of player, Ross. If you're the San Jose Sharks, you want to keep around a guy that can score 20 goals. He's young. He fits into that system clearly. So kind of surprising that the Sharks GM decided that it was a good time to trade him 37 seconds before the deadline hit. But obviously Steve Staios gave him an offer he liked, and he comes to Ottawa, doesn't exactly light it up in the, we'll call them simple analytics, goals, assists, points. But if you take a look at his advanced analytics, and even the eye test, they match up. Sens fans were watching this guy being like, man, he's got a lot of potential. He plays a tenacious game out there. He's hard on pucks. He hits. He's got the size. We saw him deadlifting 3 times his body weight. He's 5'11 or 5'10, something like that, and weighs 220, and he's deadlifting 660 in the gym. The guy's an absolute unit. He's a good age. It's just, how does he fit into this lineup, into this roster, and how does he fit cap-wise into the Ottawa Senators' future plans?
We'll get into that conversation in a little while. Tyler Kleven, Leevi Merilainen, those are the other names that we're going to be watching for. Of course, Steve Staios already took care of one piece of RFA business, signing Nicholas Matin-Palo to a 2-year contract at $875,000 per season. But speaking of the guys who do the signing, earlier this week we found out that Ryan Bowness will not be back as associate general manager and the guy who takes care of the Belleville Sens. So is it a situation where you're hoping the organization moves quickly to replace Ryan Bowness before the B-Sens lineup gets sorted out? Or should Steve Staios just go business as usual as he would without any extra opinion?
Well, I mean, it'd be interesting, and this is all speculation. We don't know this, but it'd be interesting to know, Ross, what the decision was to let Ryan Bowness go. Was it a mutual agreement? Was it the Sens being like, hey, we're going to move on? Was it Ryan Bowness being like, I kind of want to be a free agent right now. I think I can have a better opportunity somewhere else. I don't know. It hasn't come out. So the dynamic of him being let go, I think, is important in this. But I got to think, Ross, that the Ottawa Senators, before Ryan Bowness was let go or left, I don't know the correct wording to use on that one.
I do know that his contract was up, so it was just not renewed.
Yeah, but I mean, on what terms did he leave, I guess, is the confusing part there, or the part we don't know. I got to assume the Ottawa Senators were kind of prepared that this might happen or that this would happen, and that they have a short list of guys that they're interested in replacing him with. Personally, for me, Ross, this is kind of lower on my list of priorities for the Sens, because what the assistant general manager would do is a lot of the Belleville tidy work, busy work, and that can be done midway through the summer, in my opinion. So you got the draft, you got free agency, and then I think you need to focus on that stuff. But I think you want an assistant general manager in place to go through the draft process with you, to get familiar with where this team is at. So I guess, long story short, Ross, I think it's something they need to get done, but it's lower on the priority list.
Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts said, keep an eye on the name Matt Turek, and we're bringing the Brantford Bulldogs to Ottawa if that's the case. He was a part of Steve Staios' staff on the Hamilton Bulldogs as director of player personnel when they had some success there. Obviously, he's worked for Michael Andlauer before. So in business, it's not uncommon to bring in people that you've worked with in the past. So keep an eye on the name Matt Turek as a potential replacement. He's been a scout and with the Montreal Canadiens as well. Funny enough, he was an amateur scout for them in 2017-18. So if we ever get him on, we'll have to ask where they had Brady Tkachuk on their 2018 final rankings. But that is the business side of things off the ice. Now we'll turn our attention on the ice. And Fabian Zetterland, this is going to be a deep conversation because there's so many angles to attack this from. Let's start with the simplistic approach to it. Fabian Zetterland was traded at the deadline for a second-round pick and Zach Ostapchuk, so effectively 2 second-round picks. No disrespect to Noah Gregor, who is also part of that deal, but basically it was Fabian Zetterland for 2 second-round picks, one of them a little bit of development already in Ostapchuk. He played 84 games this season total between the two teams, had 19 goals, 22 assists, 154 hits, 181 shots on goal, and averaged 16 minutes and 21 seconds. But when he came to Ottawa, the opportunity dipped as much as the production. He averaged 2 minutes less per game, under 14 minutes and 20 seconds, had 2 goals and 5 points in 20 games, and had 0 goals, 0 assists in the Stanley Cup playoffs through those 6 games. Although you could say that overtime goal in Game 4 doesn't happen without his moving screen in front of the net when Jake Sanderson shot it from the point. How would you categorize Fabian Zetterland's 26 games total in Ottawa?
The first thing that came to mind, Ross, for me was underwhelming. So I guess I'll go with that just because he came in with so much excitement. Like, that was the missing scoring, shooting piece that the Ottawa Senators felt they needed. And when it was announced that they acquired him, it was kind of a random surprise move because they already made the big splash, Dylan Cousins, of that day. And he kind of thought, okay, that's a huge move for Steve Staios. That's probably going to be it. But little did we know, a part of that Dylan Cousins move was freeing up cap space to bring in another player. And Fabian Zetterland was that guy at a nice, 1.45 cap hit. So there was expectations that he was going to play in the top 6, that he was going to score a lot of goals. He already had 17 goals coming in to Ottawa, and he really has a disappointing time with the Senators, like 20 goals, 20 games, 2 goals, 3 assists, -1. And then in the playoffs, zeros all over the board. So it's going to be very interesting, Ross, when they sit down at the negotiation table. Fabian Zetterland and his camp are going to be like, look what I did in San Jose. And Ottawa and Steve Staios are going to be like, here's what you did in Ottawa. And they're going to have to find a way to find some middle ground to understand where his true value is at. And for that reason, Ross, and we can get into this more after you give your initial takes. For that reason, I'm really convinced that this is going to go to arbitration. I think neither side is going to be able to meet in the middle. They're both going to be firmly on where they think Fabian Zetterland's true abilities lie, whether it's with what he did in San Jose or what he did in Ottawa. And I have a strong feeling that this is going to be something that's going to be led to an arbitration case.
Well, you said something interesting. The simple stats weren't in Fabian Zetterland's favor, but this is going to be a complex negotiation, and the advanced stats show that every part of Fabian Zetterland's game improved when he came to Ottawa in terms of what he did around the ice, just not with the production. A better shot attempts per 60, a better defensive metric. He's got a better expected goals against per 60 minutes. Everything behind the scenes of what would give you hope that you have a player that can produce was better in Ottawa. So with that said, and then you double it with the fact that it's widely reported, Steve Staios kept calling Mike Greer in San Jose and said, give me Fabian Zetterland. Give me Fabian Zetterland. He was a piece the Senators really, really wanted.
Apparently, the talks were with the Norris deal with Zetterland initially, and obviously Steve Staios was like, that's not going to happen here. I've got different things going on with Josh Norris. Apparently, there was 3 other teams interested in Josh Norris. So clearly, the Norris deal was plan A, and then that made room for plan B, which was acquiring Zetterland some other way.
I just think despite the numbers, you saw the way he played on the ice. And if you watch the games, he was noticeable every single night. He was shooting the puck. If he had a little better luck, I think he would have had 7 or 8 goals with the Senators. So I look at the situation Fabian Zetterland has already found himself in, similarly to this one. And that's when he was traded mid-season for Timo Meier to San Jose. He had no goals, 3 assists in 22 games, eerily similar to this production. And then the next year he popped off. So I think that there is no doubt in my mind Fabian Zetterland will score 20 goals next season in a full year. So I don't look at the lack of production as that much of a crippling part of the negotiations. I think it will help Ottawa make a case that it should come in at a lower number. But he seemed to love it here, too. And obviously, he's going to say all the right things in the media. But I think having some other Swedes in the locker room, Linus Ullmark signed for the next 4 years, having Daniel Alfredsson behind the bench, I think those have got to be contributing factors for Fabian Zetterland to want to be here. I don't know whether he wants a short-term deal. He's 3 years away from unrestricted free agency, including this summer. He's a guy who hasn't really had that big contract yet, coming off of a 2-year contract where he's making 1.45. That's the highest cap hit he's ever had. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. I could see a world where it's a 6-year deal. And I could also see a year where it's a 1 or a 2.
No,
I think Steve Staios sees Fabian Zetterland as a part of the future of the Ottawa Senators. Why else would you acquire a 25-year-old?
Totally. No. I'm not doubting Fabian Zetterland's potential. I'm not doubting the Ottawa Senators' interest in him in their long-term plans. But Ross, if I'm Fabian Zetterland and his agent, there's not a chance I sign anything over a 1-year deal.
Okay.
Because you're looking at this and you're like, this was disappointing production-wise when he got to Ottawa. And even if you look at the season as a whole, Ross, 19 goals. Fabian Zetterland scored 24 goals the season before. I think he believes, and I think people that watch him and know his game, this guy's is going to be a consistent 20 goal scorer. I would even say it's not that crazy to think he could get high 20s, maybe even dip into the low 30s. Like, he has that potential. He has that skill. And even apart from his goal scoring, there's so many other parts of his game that's effective, like you mentioned, with the advanced analytics and his physical game. If I'm Fabian Zetterland and his agent, I'm doing a 1-year deal, being like, just get me here, get me on the team, get me ready for training camp. I'm going to blow the doors off you guys next year. And then let's look at a long-term deal once my value is a little bit more appropriate and where I think it could be. I think Fabian Zetterland's going to be betting on himself here. And I don't think there's any chance him and his agent and his camp go for anything. Even 2 years would surprise me, but I'll say a 1 or 2 year deal is all they're looking at here because they believe his potential is much higher. Like, if they negotiate a 6-year deal, Ross, like where would you have the value come in?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'd probably say around 4.
Yeah, and I think Fabian Zetterland thinks he would like to lock in at a higher number than that, especially when the cap goes up and he's hitting high 20 goals every year. Yeah, I don't see him agreeing to that.
Well, I'll just go then with the one contract they can't give him is one that brings him directly to unrestricted free agency.
Yeah, which I believe is a 3-year deal.
I believe so as well. And on the other side, we will get into what AFP analytics projects his next contract to be, and why a one-year deal could actually be a great thing for Fabian Zetterland. We'll also get into Tyler Kleven, Leevi Merilainen, and the rest of the RFA crop of Ottawa Senators this offseason. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. You got endless entertainment with 4K streaming. Watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services. You got Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I use my Amazon Fire Stick every single day for watching all my sports, and I can play Xbox exclusive games like Starfield. So head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Amazon Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? It's easy when you use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs puts your post at the top of the page and helps you reach the right candidates faster. You ever been in that spot where you need to hire like yesterday? The pressure's on. Every day without the right person's a setback. That's exactly when Indeed's Sponsored Jobs comes in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. And right now, you can speed up that hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On Senators. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed is all you need. All right, Pilsy. So the curious pace of Fabian Zetterland continues, and we have confirmed he is an unrestricted free agent the summer of 2027. So a 2-year deal would bring him directly to free agency.
Yeah, so if you're the Sens, you don't want to do that. If you're Zetterland, that's probably what you want. So it's either got to be a 1-year deal or a 3-year deal in my mind. I don't think maybe the Sens would try to get him in a longer deal, but I just think you're not quite sure what you have with him here. So locking into a long-term deal, I don't think would be good for either side, honestly.
Especially with the cap going up right now. Ottawa sitting with $18 million, 17.6 to be exact, $million in cap space right now, but still with Claude Giroux as the big ticket signing they need to make. They also need to allocate money for a backup goalie and take care of Tyler Kleven's restricted free agent contract and potentially add another defenseman as well. So the year after that, they've got $37 million in cap space. The year after that, 60.4. But of course, there's plenty of other business to take care of over the course of time.
Ross,
there.
Let's get into our 2027, 2028 signing projections. How about we just jump right into that?
Okay. Probably let David Perron go. You're going to have to up Shane Pinto's contract, though, at the same time. But no, jokes aside, with Fabian Zetterland, I'm right with you. If he wants to bet on himself for a 1-year deal, that would help out the Senators tremendously with trying to build a better team next year than they had this year. So I would ask him straight up, is that something you're interested in? But I also look at him as, since they want him as a part of the future, you don't want to negotiate in bad faith and say, you weren't great for us, we're only looking at a 1-year deal with you. I think you give him the options of 1, 3. And I would even say, look, if you want to lock in security, because I believe in you, but this is what we can do for that. And then if he says, no, I believe that at that point, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, I'm going to be a player much more valuable than $4 million. Well, then let's look at a 1-year deal. Go out and show us that you can produce on the score sheet in Ottawa as a Senator. And then we'll be happy to look at that negotiation next summer after we've got a bigger sample size in the nation's capital. So AFP Analytics, and they are pretty spot on. We'll put the link to all their contract projections in the bio of this episode if you want to take a look. They do player comparables and the whole bit. They have him at a 3-year contract projection worth $3.92 million. Simply, I ask you, Pilsy, if that deal is on the table and you're Steve Staios, do you sign it?
Yeah, I think so. Like the only thing that scares me is that takes him to UFA, but
well, you're buying 1 UFA a year there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would sign that under $4 million. I would do that. I even think that's not that bad of a deal for Zetterlund. I don't think they would be that crazy for him to look at that. Yeah, let's call Fabian Zetterlund's agent, and let's just get that done.
If it is a 1-year deal, though, what do you think the value is?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into, Ross. At 1 year, I'm looking at high 2s, low 3s, like somewhere between 2.8 and 3.2.
Because like Tyler Bertuzzi is who they used as the comparable, not the most recent contract he signed, but with Detroit as an RFA. And that's obviously back a few years ago where the cap wasn't going up, and he got 1 year at 3.5. To me, that's the high end on a 1-year deal. You can't go higher than 3.5.
Yeah, like honestly, I think an arbitrator would put him 1 year, $3 million.
You think so?
I think so. I mean,
I hope it doesn't get to arbitration. I don't want them to have to go through that process with him.
Yeah, no, it's not great, but I mean, this is a guy that was just brought in, so like, you know, it's still a feeling out process here. You're both trying to understand where you stand leverage wise. I don't think this would be a nasty arbitration, Ross. I just think, like I said, I think it would be the Sens being like, hey, you underwhelmed us when we got you, and Fabian Zetterland being like, I know I've got more to give, and then not being able to meet in the middle. I don't know anything about how arbitration works. I'm Brandon Piller, not a lawyer. Brandon Piller, not a math guy. Not a lot of things. So this is just speculation and a guess based on vibes, which is very important. I'm saying an arbitrator would go 1 year, $3 million.
One thing I do know about the arbitration process is both sides usually come out of it pretty upset at the other side for what they've said.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Sens being like, no, you suck more than you think. And it's Fabian Zetterland being like, no, you guys are disrespecting me. I'm better than you think. So yeah. It's not great. And yeah, we've heard stories of players going to arbitration being like, that was the worst thing ever, sitting in that room across from my GM and basically fighting for nickels and dimes and trying to prove how good I am, and them being like, no, you're actually not that good. So it's not a great thing to have to do, for sure.
Let's be on the lookout for this contract. Obviously, the qualifying offer will come in at the end of June if nothing's already set. And
just one more thing on it, though, Ross, before we move on. Where do you put Fabian Zetterland's RFA contract negotiations in the priority list of signings? Is he right under Giroux?
Right under, yeah.
Yeah?
He'll be my next. Because you want to take care of the biggest pieces of business so you have your cap figured out to a certain extent going into the real transactional period of the summer.
Yep, agreed.
Tyler Kleven is a full-time NHLer now, played the entire year in Ottawa for the first season. What does that mean for his next contract? And Leevi Merilainen, another very interesting one coming up. But you mentioned arbitration so quickly. Here are the Ottawa Senators RFAs that are eligible for arbitration this offseason. Outside of Fabian Zetterland, it's Jan Yannick, Jamison Reese, Max Gannett. That is the entirety of the list. We will touch on Belleville RFAs as well at the end of the show, but Tyler Kleven and Leevi Merilainen are next, and we will get to that momentarily. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. You guys know FanDuel is the official online sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, and the NBA playoffs are in full swing. Every night is delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with the same-game parlay? Or how could a $200 in bonus bets add to the excitement if your first $5 bet wins? If you're new to FanDuel, that's the deal. It's perfect to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, Billsy, good conversation there on Fabian Zetterland. Let us know in the comments what you believe a fair contract would be for Fabian Zetterland and how much term are you willing to offer him. Shout out to the everydayers out here making us your first listen. We appreciate you citizens so much here. Monday through Friday, we ain't going anywhere despite being the off season. Love seeing the views remaining consistent. Lots of comments saying, hey, I'm engaged in this offseason more than I have in the last 7 years. This team can take the next step. Tyler Kleven took the next step in his development after a very successful step above step career at North Dakota, came into the American Hockey League and got better and better. That trend continued even within this season, Billsy, because he did not have the best training camp. We were even talking that, man, Donovan Sebrango kind of outplayed him in the preseason, but they stuck with him. And throughout the season, I would say right when Ottawa's season turned around, end of November, beyond, we saw Tyler Kleven's game improve dramatically.
Well, Ross, I remember in mid-October being like, oh, man, the Sens just exposed themselves because all year they're like, nope. Tyler Kleven's going to fit in perfectly as a left shot defenseman in the NHL. We don't need a security blanket or we don't need to sign a veteran left shot defenseman. We're good. And then a couple weeks in, I believe we had an episode segment being like, let's look at all the UFA's left shot defensemen available because we need one right now. So credit to the Sens organization and Tyler Kleven for having patience, figuring it out. And it all worked out great because this guy has been one of the most praised guys on the Ottawa Senators during their 6 playoff games. Like Mark Messier was keying in on him as a guy that he loved watching. That's your third paired rookie defenseman is one of the guys highlighted by a legendary player. Like that just shows you that clearly there's potential for Tyler Kleven. And I think everyone watching, Sens fans especially, noticed how good he was in the playoffs.
And it's just his style is built for that, right?
Yep.
Let's call it a meat and potato style of hockey. But he's also got some sneaky skill. He's not afraid to rush the puck up the ice and make plays in the offensive zone.
And he's got a cannon of a slap shot.
Whoo, the one against San Jose in that game they had no business winning. Yeah. Huge. I believe that was his first NHL goal back then. He finishes the season with 4 goals and 6 assists in 79 games, 105 hits, 78 shots on goal, averaged 14 and a half minutes per game. He did finish minus 11 this season, and a big part of that was April, where he was a minus 7 in 9 games. But through March, when all the games felt like they were must win, Tyler Kleven had 3 points, +1, 12 games, and 14 shots on goal. It was his best month of the season. And it also coincided to Nicholas Matienpalo getting back from the 4 Nations and elevating his game. It felt like Tyler Kleven at the start of the season. He was playing a lot with Travis Hamonic as well. And then once him and Matienpalo found a groove, Kleven started playing his best hockey. I'm going to echo what Linus Ullmark said. I'd love to see him hit the way he did in the playoffs all season long. And you got to think that it is in his genes to do that. He's just got to get more comfortable playing every other night in the National Hockey League. Like, if you look at it, that's a lot of hockey against the best players in the world. So I think that you're looking for Tyler Kleven to take an even bigger step next season than he did this year. And with that, starting on time too. Travis Green mentioned in his end of season pressers that he felt like Tyler Kleven did not have a great start to the season, but that it got better as things progressed. Like, he had never played more than last year. He played 61 games, is the most ever, where he played 53 in Belleville, 9 in Ottawa. This year he played 79 regular season plus 6 playoff games. That's 85 total games this year. And before, like, obviously in college, he's playing 35 to 38 games, and then jumped into the NHL for 8 at the end of his college season. So I think this offseason is enormous for Tyler Kleven. And I think that we got a little ahead of ourselves during the playoffs, where we're like, oh, we got to get this guy signed long-term. We got to get this guy locked up. I think that this is the perfect candidate for a 1 or a 2 year contract where you want him to be a part of the future, but it feels like, similarly to Fabian Zetterland, but on a lesser scale, this is a year where you can take advantage of having him at an extremely low value. He does not have the leverage in negotiations against the organization.
Yeah, and just quickly, Ross, talking about him getting off to a poor start, do you think that has anything to do with the fact that Nicholas Matimpalo started the first 20 games in Belleville, and Tyler Kleven, correct me if I'm wrong, was paired with Travis Hamonic for the start of the season? And then when Matimpalo got called up and they said, hey, why don't we just put a D pair together that already has chemistry and works good together, Kleven and Matimpalo, that's when things turned around.
Yeah, it did. And not only that, like at one point, Hamonic was up with Sanderson too. So it was kind of a revolving door on the right side third pair, right? Because Zub was out too. So there were times where they were kind of struggling, I think, to find what was going to work for a third pair. And I think he was a bit of not the opposite of a beneficiary. He was kind of not ruined, but it didn't work out as well. Him and JBD had a few good games together. There's no doubt about that when they played together early on in the season. But it felt like as the year went on, I'd love to see kind of the behind the scene metrics kind of split up for, let's say, from October to the end of November, and then through December to the Four Nations, and then after the Four Nations, because it feels like he took steps forward each and every time. The one thing that's for sure, and if it wasn't already midway through the season, is that he's a full-time NHLer. So there is no world where he's getting a two-way contract. It's a 1 year deal. The question, Pilsy, is how much money should the Senators be allocating, not only for the player, but for that role on a team, third pair, right or left side defenseman?
I feel like, Ross, for every single contract we've been projecting, I'm like 1 year deal, arbitration, 1 year deal. With Tyler Kleven, I think you want to go 2 years on this one. Like I'm looking at 2 years, something like 1.5, 1.7. That's what I think I would be approaching with Tyler Kleven here.
I would be okay with 1.5. I think they get him much cheaper than that.
On a 2 year deal?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think 2 years you probably get up to 1.3. That would be my what leverage does he have to sit out? He has no arbitration rights, and he has 1 season of NHL games under his belt.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Kleven is not going to be sitting out based on $300,000 swing one way or another. That's for sure. I just think if you look at the value that he brings and the consistency that he found, I think you could find him above 1.5. But I mean, yeah, we're talking about a couple of $100,000 here, which obviously it is a big deal. But when you're looking at percentage wise of an NHL team's salary cap, can easily be swayed one way or another.
AFP Analytics projects Tyler Kleven to get a 2 year deal at $1.09 million. So call it $1.1 million, which would be replacing the exact contract that Travis Hamonic was finishing up. So
did they give him the no move clause?
No, I don't think
he probably doesn't get that one.
Yeah, I guess he can coming off an entry level, but
why not?
I think that 2 years at 1.1 gets it done, gets him in the lineup. And then if he has a great year this year and you want to show him the loyalty, we know Tyler Kleven's super loyal guy. And we talked to him at development camp. He's like, I love Ottawa. Like, this is my kind of city, my kind of place. And obviously they believed in him to trade up and get him in the 2020 draft. I think that you could renegotiate with him a year early. That's kind of where I would go with him. Say, hey, let's give you the 2-year cushion of security.
Yep.
But if you have a great year, like, we could be open to discussing a 3-year extension beyond that after you play your next season. But to keep the cost down, keep everything just right, I think a 1 or a 2-year deal would be the play here.
Yeah, and I think Sens fans have got addicted to the gamble of locking guys up long term. Like, they're just like, if we see a player that's doing well, you're like, give him a 7-year deal right now, save the money on the cap, blah, 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 because it has worked out. Like with Timmy and Sanderson, Timmy especially, like that, as the cap goes up, getting a number 1 center at $8.3 million is an absolute steal. And then Jake Sanderson getting a number 1 defenseman at $8 million will become an absolute steal. Brady's contract is, I would say, fair. I wouldn't say it's a steal or a bad deal one way or another. I think that's where he should be slotted at. But you can't, and this is why I was preaching the good word of a bridge deal for Shane Pinto. You can't just lock up every single young player that you think has potential, because then you get a handful of Colin Whites in the batch too. For every steal, you're going to have ones where you're like, oh man, what the heck do we do with this one? I mean, even Josh Norris's contract was an issue.
That was more health. But still, that's a risk you take.
Exactly. Yeah, it's still a part of the problem there, and it was an issue that Steve Staios felt strong enough that he had to move him. So you can't just lock up every player after they have a good year.
I agree with that. So let us know in the comments what you think about Tyler Kleven, because I'm going 2 by 1.1 as my projection for Tyler Kleven.
2.2 at 1.5.
Okay, let's see what Steve Staios is able to finalize. This one is the most intriguing one to me. I know Fabian Zetterland is the higher money, but Leevi Merilainen, you can't tell the story of the Senators season without Leevi Merilainen. This guy came up, gave them 12 games. He was 8-3-1, and in the overtime loss, had a shutout through regulation. It took Alex Ovechkin to beat him to get that blemish in the overtime section of this. He had a plus 6.8 goals saved above expected, a .925 save percentage, a 1.99 goals against average, and 3 shutouts. He was unbelievable all season long for the Ottawa Senators. Like, let's take a look here. I need to see this for my own good. There's a decent amount of guys. Only 24 goalies in the National Hockey League this season had 3 or more shutouts.
Yeah.
Nobody played less games.
I was going to say, yeah, that's the cap. Like, percentage of games where you get a shutout, that should be advanced analytic, Ross. Levy's got to lead the league. 12 games, 11 starts too, right? Because he came in that Edmonton game and got charged with the loss because it was tied at 1, but he didn't even start that game. Ullmark got hurt. So that's his NHL numbers, and it will certainly be a part of the negotiation. But hey, how do you do in Belleville, where he played most of the season? The answer is pretty damn good. An 18-12-7 record, a 2.37 goals against average, a .913 save percentage, and 4 shutouts down there as well. So where do you start the negotiation with Leevi Merilainen, who still does not need waivers for next season? Ross, this is one of the situations, sometimes you have the hammer and sometimes you don't. The Ottawa Senators have the hammer in this situation. They have all the leverage, and we love to see players get their money and get paid based on their value, of course. But this is a situation where the Ottawa Senators need to flex their muscles and their leverage and use it on Leevi Merilainen. And I think you're looking at a 1 or 2 year deal here at league minimum, and maybe even sticking at a 2-way deal here.
I think if you're going a 2-way deal, it's going to be just a 1-year contract.
Yeah.
And that's where they have the real leverage. Look, Matt Sogard last summer signed a 2-year deal where the second year was a 1-way. That's kind of the undercurrent that nobody is ready to talk about right now, where they've got a real decision to make on Matt Sogard. And we'll get to that throughout the summer here. But with that said, the way Leevi Merilainen played, and its unfortunate injury told a bit of the story with Matt Sogard. He's also had a lot of NHL games to prove himself too. but I would be comfortable doing that with Leevi Merilainen. But that way, it would keep the second-year AAV down because it would still be under $1 million overall. So I think Levy's going to be pushing, hey, look, one more year of this two-way business. I think AFP Analytics projected it to be an $814,000 contract, 1 year, two-way. But then if I'm Leevi, I'm not taking the 2-year contract, second year, one way. Because if he has another season where he has to come up and play, or if he makes the team and plays on that deal in 1 year, he's going to be looking at 1.3 or more per season on a one-way deal for the following season.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I don't love going the 1 year, two-way, 1 year, one-way deal just because I feel like it creates a weird dynamic, and I don't want to say an entitlement. Like I'm not trying to say that once you get that one-way deal, you're like, okay, well, I have to be in the NHL. This is what the plan was. This is what you guys promised me or set up for me. I'm not sure that's beneficial. We've seen it done a couple times in the past, and it doesn't always work out. So I think broken record Pilsy over here, but I'm going 1 year deal again. I think Leevi and his camp don't agree to anything else. I think you're doing just a one more 1 year, two-way deal to see how things go. Maybe you try to bump the AHL money up a little bit more to try to get some value out of the great NHL experience and numbers he put up. But I just think if you're the Ottawa Senators, you're trying to keep you don't want to put Leevi into your NHL cap issues or just situation unless he's playing in the NHL guaranteed and he's going to be your backup goalie in my mind.
He's such a stud,
which he could be. Man. Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't want people to get twisted being like, oh, Pilsy's down on Leevi. Why can't he see that Leevi was the best goal, even better than Ullmark in the NHL? He needs to be playing in the NHL right now. I get that. I appreciate that, and I'll hear that. But goalies are so strange, man. Like they can be so good and then fall off, or something happens with like mentally they can't find their way back to where they were, or expectations get too big. Like
it's just his job.
Yeah, and again, do not get it twisted. I'm not saying that this will happen to Leevi, or I don't believe in Leevi, or we can't put our faith in Leevi. That's not at all what I'm saying. All I'm saying is, with goalies as a general wide view, it's very difficult to try to project and predict where a goalie in his 20s will end up when he's playing NHL games on a regular basis. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and we'll see. This is going to be, to me, very fascinating. And if it's a 1 year contract at $850,000 or $900,000, it's a great deal for the Ottawa Senators, because there is a world where he's the backup goalie next season and plays the full year in the NHL. But that way he's not playing a whole lot of games. I almost think that, again, back to our conversation on Anton Forsberg yesterday, where you would rather Leevi play as a starter in Belleville and then come up and be the starter if something were to happen to Ullmark than have him just sit on the bench all year.
And that's the thing. Like, I think like you need to look at his development path as well. Like, do I believe Leevi Merilainen could be a competent NHL backup? Yeah, absolutely. But do I believe that it's better for his overall development to play 25 games in the NHL than it is to play 40 or 50 in the AHL? Because he's the number one guy in Belleville now. Like, it's unfortunate for Mads, but I think Mads is going to have to beat out Leevi for games. And I think it's going to be a 60-40 split percentage-wise for Leevi Merilainen in the AHL. It's much better for him to get those games, be challenged at an AHL level on a more consistent basis, in my opinion, than it is for him to play once a week and on second half of back-to-back games in the NHL.
His cap hit is $820,000 last year. His qualifying offer is $813,750 for next year. So just get him signed, 1 year contract, and if he does what he did last year, this year, he's going to be due for a substantial raise after that.
I bet he gets $950, Ross.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep in Belleville then. There's some players that are on RFA contracts, and a lot of them are young players. Jamison Reese is probably the one guy where I might be ready to let him continue on his career elsewhere. Yeah. Max Gannett has arbitration. He's been in the organization for a long time. He was a big-time Pierre Dorion guy, too. Former 7th-round pick in 2019. We'll see where that goes. But Sabrango, they love his leadership. He got some NHL games this year. Great story. And with a young decor in Belleville, we would expect him to be back. Jan Yannick, a very versatile pivot down there. Expect him to be back. Tristan Robbins, they just brought in, so we'll see what happens with him, whether he was just a throw-in or if the organization valued him enough that they want him back. But the two guys who I want to mention, Philip Daoust, a part of the 2020 draft, a late pick there. He struggled to stay healthy for the first 3 years of his pro career, 15 games, then 9, then 4. This year he played 54 games, Pillsy, had 22 points in those 54 games. But get this, he finished the season with 15 points in his last 22 games. So he started to heat up. So I would like to specifically see Philip Daoust back in the organization. And Xavier Bourgault, part of the Yarventi trade. By the way, Yarventi going back to Europe. So it turns out that maybe the Sens kind of knew what was down the pipeline. Bourgault had 7 points in his last 9 games this season. So I'd like to see him back as a young guy too.
Well, I think it's important to note, Ross, that at the end of the AHL season, there was a lot more opportunities on that Belleville roster, right? Crooker was up. Hodgson was up. Yep. Highmore had been up. Like, there was a lot more guys called up from AHL in the NHL, and that boosted everyone's spot in the lineup in Belleville. So that's part of the, I'm not taking things away from these guys, but that's part of the reason why probably they were able to have a little more success at the end of the year. I'm with you on all those guys. The guys you said we got to keep, guys you said we got to maybe send off. I think that's fair.
All right, let us know in the comments how you feel about the Sens restricted free agent crop here in 2025. We'll be back on Monday. We will begin our exit interviews with the goalies on Monday. That should be a fun conversation, looking at how Ullmark, Forsberg, Meriläinen, and Sogard all fared throughout this season and what their expectations are moving forward with the organization. We'll also see if Steady Stevie Steos wants to put pen to paper with any of his free agents throughout the weekend. Any final thoughts on today's show, Pillsy?
Yes. Ross, you're sitting down right now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't want to alarm you. Something alarming has happened. The London Knights have lost a playoff game after 12 straight wins, sweeping 3 series. They finally lost. The Oshawa Generals hand them a 4-2 loss, and Blake Montgomery with no points in that. So, interesting little slice of humble pie for the London Knights finally losing a game.
Yeah, we'll see how they can bounce back against Oshawa in the OHL finals. My final thought is shout out to friend of the show, David Foote, the broadcaster extraordinaire for the Belleville Senators. He will be calling the WHL finals. So excited to see or hear him on the call. Thank you for watching, listening, engaging with the show. If you missed any of our content this week, we have shows Monday through Friday, all the way through mid-July. Then we'll go down to 3 shows a week throughout the rest of the summer, interview season, Ring of Honor season. Really looking forward to a phenomenal off-season where Steve Steos will have another chance to put his stamp on these playoff Ottawa Senators. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.